They told me I'd potentially never walk again. And so I remember getting out of my bed for the first time, and it was so hard to do. There were so many moving parts in hospital. There were so many issues coming up, and the doctors were running around. And I sat back and I sort of said, and I see certainly in construction, companies feel like they should be building AI for the sake of building AI, whereas we really need to sit back and go.
Imagine being 31 years old, doing something you love on a normal day at the beach. You paddle out, catch a wave, and in an instant, everything changes. What followed for today's guest was 18 months in hospital, more than 55 operations, 3 months unconscious in intensive care, 2 strokes, and a kidney transplant donated by his mother. Doctors told him he would likely never walk again. For an engineer whose world revolved around numbers, they also warned he may have lost parts of his memory. Most people would have accepted that their life would never be the same, but today's guest chose a different path. One step at a time, he fought his way back to walking, back to engineering, back into the ocean, and eventually into building businesses that are helping shape the future of Australia's construction and infrastructure industries. Today, he is the founder of Praxis Engineering, a consultancy involved in some of the nation's most significant infrastructure projects. He is also the founder of Axesse, a technology platform transforming how contractors understand cost and carbon risk during the design phase of major infrastructure projects. And Carbon Trace, a platform helping the residential housing sector better understand and reduce embodied carbon. What's fascinating is that the same belief that helped him survive 15 years ago continues to drive his work today, that numbers tell us a story. In hospital, those numbers measured heart rate, oxygen levels, and kidney function. Today, they help engineers make better decisions, reduce costs, lower carbon emissions, and potentially unlock a future where AI agents review engineering designs in real time before projects are ever built. This is a conversation about resilience, it's a conversation about innovation, and it's a conversation about what becomes possible when you refuse to let your circumstances define your future. And it's a conversation about how data, technology, and human determination transform the way we build the world around us. I'm Lauren Karan. Welcome to the Building Doors podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Ben. I'm really excited to get stuck into the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You have had such an interesting backstory. I mean, probably one of the most interesting ones I've come across so far on the podcast. So normally I ask about why you chose engineering, but I want to hear about your life-changing event, because I think you chose engineering, but then now subsequently you've built businesses and had a different path. So let's go back to that day on the beach and take me through that transformation you've been through personally and professionally.
Yeah. Interesting. I love talking about it. It's something that I haven't really shared with the working community. So this is actually the first time I've probably come out. I've kind of tried to keep it under wraps a little bit. I never really wanted sympathy coming back into the workplace but that day on the beach, it was doing something I love. I've got a huge passion for life. I love exploration. I love getting out there and challenging the normal, getting out there and traveling the world and surfing. Surfing's been a massive part of my life, which has allowed me to grow and see the world and learn. And it continues to make me learn to this day. That accident was a point in my life and it certainly changed my life. It's like the sliding doors moment. Would I take it back? I probably wouldn't. If I was sitting in the water and I saw that wave come again, I'd take off on it. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time, and I don't really have regrets. Obviously, I wouldn't like to go through what I've gone through again. I wish I didn't have the disabilities I've got today, but stuff in life happens, and we just got to deal with it and move on.
So what I find interesting is those kind of life-changing events. Obviously, they teach that you've got the resilience, so you kind of learn what you're capable of. But then did it shift for you what impact you wanted to have or what you then wanted to do with your life?
Oh, look, I think it actually teaches you, as a kid laying in a hospital bed for a long period of time. It was over a year, and I think it really makes you understand what's important in life, and to build businesses and to, buy real estate and to invest in share market and make money and all that. It becomes insignificant. And what was really clear to me was the really core thing that stood out was community and people and friends and family, and that, a lot of people say that on their deathbed, all they want to do is talk about their family and their kids. It's not about how much money you've got. It's not about your status or anything like that. It's just about, having those family and those friends around you. It was such an incredible thing to experience. Like I guess the biggest highlight, yes, I went through, the hardest of hard times and the lowest of low lows and certainly dark days. But, what sits in my mind now, 15 years on, is just the incredible people that got around me and supported me, and they still support me to this day. So that was something I was really, really proud of, and really, really happy that I got to experience that.
Did it surprise you who came through? I've talked to someone that's been through. Did it surprise you who came through and
Yeah.
who didn't?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's people that you kind of disregard in your life, and then something like this happens, and well, not disregard, but you kind of you think they're a bit more shallow than probably what they are, and they stand up and they come to the front, and then there's those people that you think are close, and they're not as close as you think. So it is a defining point, and it's sort of, I think it shows people's true colours. You know, but also on the other hand, it was tough times. It was critical, and some people don't really know how to respond when it was life or death. It was, people didn't really know what to say and things like that. So it was interesting times, but it was, yeah, it was interesting to see who came forward and who didn't.
And do you think a lot of people professionally don't know the personal journey you've been on as well? Because you kind of, if you look on LinkedIn and things, you spoke so much about your businesses and things like that. But when I was researching you, this fascinated me about, because it's this mindset and resilience you've been able to demonstrate and then successfully go out and create these businesses essentially that again are transforming a sector.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's taken me 15 years to really get out. I put a LinkedIn post on about probably 3 months or 6 months ago, and went pretty crazy on impressions and what have you, and feedback. But I've really kept it close to myself. Like I said, I've never wanted sympathy for my accident. I've never wanted to be treated differently. I just want to be normal. That was the thing getting out of hospital. When I was in hospital, there was so much love and support. You kind of get elevated to this kind of B-grade celebrity status, and it's sort of, and then you get out of it, and all I wanted to do was get back to the real world and start building things again. And I guess it's taken 15 years, but I'm super proud of what I've achieved and ticked off. And the 3 businesses now that I've built, they're all shaped around the core value that I learned in hospital, and it's about never giving up, and building a small engineering consultancy is hard. Building 2 tech startups is even harder, and the number of no's and knockdowns I've got is incredible. But this fight inside me about never giving up is certainly something that was certainly evident in hospital, and it's evident today, and I'm super proud of it. So
Yeah.
and I'm happy to publicly sort of say that now. It's sort of taken a long time. I know that I'm not getting sympathy from people now, so I know that what I'm building is through hard work and determination, and I really think it's going to land.
So tell us more about what you're building then as well, because I think that's important to understand and kind of where the ideas came from, because this always fascinates me about, the evolution of different businesses, the consultancy and the other tech startups. Where did it come from?
Yeah, I mean, the core of my whole working career, I've been an engineer, civil engineer, designing linear infrastructure for over 25 years now. And I've always wanted to challenge the normal. I always wanted to do better. And I always thought, think differently. We can do better as an industry. And I personally led that life myself for all those years. And now that, I see the way we're designing these major linear infrastructure projects, and I know that there's a way that we can do it better. Maybe controversial to a few, but I know that having data up our sleeve, is something that I've done from day dot. And it's, when I used to run my engineering designs, I'd change it and I'd re-quantify and I'd see what that impact was and how we could keep changing our designs. And over the years, the time frame to design has gotten shorter. So the industry is losing that ability to iterate. And anything in life, we iterate it more times, we get it better. And so that's kind of been my mindset that I've lived from day one, and it still is today. And I really think it's about, it's on our website at Praxis, think differently and deliver value. I think that itself is pretty powerful. So,
tell me more about think differently, because I get it, and I believe in thinking differently too. But then, of course, coming with thinking differently, you're taking other people on a journey to see things differently in a vision that you have, in a different way that things can be done. Tell me more about that, because I know as well, and I get that sometimes that's hard, right? Because people have got this preconceived idea, we've always done it this way, even if that way doesn't drive the best outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, change in any human behaviour is certainly difficult at that human level. It gets even harder at the organisation level. So thinking differently and changing people's perception is certainly not easy. I think, and for me with Axesse, we've been pushing hard for 6 years now about trying to get this into market, and there's been a lot of knockdowns and knockbacks, but it's starting to have some traction, and I'm pretty excited about the future of it starting to come together now with the whole adoption of data and AI. So I think thinking differently, I think you need to just believe in yourself, and if you believe for long enough, and if other people see the value, then they will get on board. So I think we can apply it to our personal lives. If we want to think differently, how do we want to live our lives? Like, do we want to be the status quo and do it how everyone else has done it? Or, we've got the ability these days to live the life that we want to live. And if we want to work remotely, we can. If we want to do things differently, I think life has opened up a lot more to how it used to be. And I think, in our engineering world, it's a very old school, fragmented sort of world where we do things the same way that we've always done it. And no, we're not changing. So the engineering world is a special place, but I really believe that, this is where the biggest opportunities lie.
One of the things, and someone spoke to me about this recently, is starting to think, why not? I think we always go straight to, okay, we've done this way, that won't work, all the reasons. But then sometimes it's just asking yourself the question, why not? Why? And I want to learn more about the data side of things too, like the data-driven decisions. Tell me more about what that looks like. Explain it to me about how that I guess is utilized in the design side. I'm interested in just understanding more about the thinking around that.
Yeah, so I think data, when you look at it holistically, data drives almost most decisions that we make in our lives, whether you're setting up a business and you're looking at your business model, or you're buying your groceries, or you're going out shopping. It's like there's the underlying thing about data, and it is like the golden source of truth, like where everything comes from. And so I've applied that sort of thinking into the engineering world, and when I look at my career, how I've approached my designs, yes, we need to build compliant designs to the technical standards. That's the biggest challenge. And then, but in linear infrastructure, and that's my specialty. I'm not a structural. I'm not building structures. The roads are infinite. There's infinite different ways to build a road. So what's the best way? Who knows? We don't know. Nobody knows. How do you work that out? You look at the data. The data tells a story. With the data, when I talk about data, I'm talking about the quantities, detailed quantities. Once you know the quantities in an engineering design, you're going to know the estimated cost. You're going to know the embodied carbon in real time, and that's essentially what we've built with Axesse. It's essentially a platform that digs into that aligns with the 3D design model. So I want it to work in parallel not change business as usual, be able to integrate into the live design environment and be able to come up with a way that we can pull that, extract that data, that detailed data that sits underneath these really complex design models that the engineers work on, pull that data in real time, stick it into a structured list or a structured data format, which is a bill of quantities. And then we can understand the cost and the carbon at any point in the project. And how great is that to align data against decisions that are made on a weekly basis through the life of a design? It starts validating decisions that are made. It starts telling us which decisions weren't the best decisions. And in my opinion, it's capturing these as early as possible. Once these are captured later in the design, it's too late to change, and the ship's already sailed. So that's kind of the thinking around the data side of it. And like I said, it's been in my mind ever since day dot of starting engineering design.
Mm. And then how does that loop in with AI? What is that? What capability and capacity does that give us when we have that powerful data framework around how we can leverage AI?
Well, you're exactly right there. The data framework, it needs to be a structured data set. So it's all about getting that structured data. And, the word AI has been flogged to death around all industries, and engineering's a bit harder because, engineering, we need to be exact. We can't afford to not have our numbers exact. And so what we've built with Axesse, we're actually finding, I've spent 5 or 6 years building this thing, and I've just realized, worked out that we've built an AI company. And all it is at its core is getting structured bill of quantity data on a regular basis. Once we've got that data, we're not even using AI in the model. Once we've got that in tabular form, we can start analyzing that data. And then once it's all there, the AI agents and that's when they come into play. So that's kind of step 3. Step 1 is getting it into the team, starting to get them to change. Step 2 is getting the actual structured data. Once you've got that, then we can start talking about AI. So I'm talking to a lot of industry, and I see, certainly in construction, companies feel like they should be building AI for the sake of building AI, whereas we really need to sit back and go, how is it going to improve our industry? And let's not build it for the sake of building it. Let's think about it and set the framework first. And once you get the framework right, and how you deliver projects that align to your company and how you work and your teams work, once you get that framework right, the AI is just going to revolutionize how we deliver projects.
So that's really interesting as well. And I've talking about getting the framework right, when we're looking at consultancies, what do you see as some of the barriers or some of the challenges that consultancies need to overcome to get that framework right? Where do you see the opportunities there?
Well, the opportunities for me is seen, like, in our world, specifically in the road space and bulk earthworks, it's running out the quantities on a regular basis. It sounds silly, but it seems so simple and such an easy idea, but it's not done. It hasn't been done in industry before. The consultants are engaged to deliver a technically compliant design, and there's a huge amount of work that goes into that, and safety and design. And they're squeezed on timeframes, and the running of manual quantities is a time-consuming task, and the reality is we just don't have time to do that. So that can get kicked down the road, and some sort of lightweight quantities may be developed, but the devil's in the detail, and so we're reliant on the quantity surveyors to come in and work out that stuff for us, and so my whole approach is if we can get that lightweight sort of QS service into the front end of designs, which is building that framework and that platform that doesn't add extra time to design teams. It allows us to just get a new view on projects that we haven't had before. It gives us a dashboard where we can start looking at our projects from not only a visual perspective in terms of the drawings, but also in that data layer where we can actually understand estimated costs and carbon in real time.
What's the cost of us not doing it? That's one thing I always think about. Like, where do you see the bleeding, I guess, the missed opportunity or the rework or the issues by not doing it?
Well, I think you only have to look at every single project that's delivered these days, and they're running over budgets, and that's, I'm not saying that's just from what we're doing. We are a part of that. Delivering major projects these days is difficult. There's so many moving parts and procurement and, a lot of stuff outside of our control. But the thing I say is, work on the stuff that we can control. That was actually a big thought back in hospital. There was so many moving parts in hospital. There was so many issues coming up, and the doctors were running around, and I sat back and I sort of said, let's leave these to the doctors. Let's focus on what we can control as a family. And that was, for me, it was putting a smile on my face, being nice to everyone. I knew the doctors were going to take care of the data. That was their job. And it's interesting that the parallel to what I'm trying to do now with Axesse is very similar to that, where let the engineering teams do that. We can take care of the data. We can supply that extra layer of information to the design teams, and we can deliver cheaper projects. And the cost of not doing it, I think, we're just going to continue going down our old ways of going over budget and the blowout and costs of all these major projects. Like I said, I'm not going to fix that. What I'm trying to do is really control that design stage, and how do we really produce the best design that we can in the time frame that we've got available to us. I guess the other benefit of understanding this data early, it allows your procurement teams to start seeing that data, working on better pricing for their projects and what have you. So the supply chain hopefully will then start having more time to improve on that side of things. So yeah.
One of the things that I think is interesting, which is a parallel with your journey in coming back from hospital and coming back and regaining so much of your mobility and all the things that you went through, is then also, have you thought about as well and I think it's maybe because I've kind of become friends and have known people in the industry so long. Have you thought about the people cost? Because we talk about productivity, and the people cost of not having the right tools for so many people just means they work so many hours. Because I'm interested with your take on that, because it's something people tell me in private, and I'm like, I need to talk about this on the podcast, because it is a real issue where people are hitting these stages in their career. They're having kids, they're having families, they're still passionate about what they do, but there's only so many hours in a day, and they're constantly being told they need to be more productive.
Yeah, I mean, people cost, it's a huge one, and there's I'll answer that in two parts. I think the two parts is, if we can get the data into the front end of these design projects, we want to eliminate rework. So we don't want to lock down a design at 30%. It goes off to the contractor, and they look at the costing, and the design team's worked on for another couple of weeks before the results come back from the contractor, and then they realize there's a big issue with cost, and we go back and we start doing rework. There's two or 3 weeks we've just lost from the design team. Let's remove that, and that's going to help people and teams in terms of, if we can capture that on day 1 or day 2, there's 2 or 3 weeks we've just saved from design time. The other big thing I see with data and getting that out of projects is the ability to start training junior resources coming through. And this is where AI really comes into it. We're testing things now where we're running out the quantities, and we can send someone a Teams message and say, hey, look, we just saw you've uploaded your latest road, for example. Do you realize that you've got this much disposal of excess material? Here's a couple of things you could potentially look at in your design. So for me as a young engineer, I never saw that level of detail in terms of how do we actually build these major projects? What's a detailed specification for a project look like? And that's where, if we can turn that really complicated technical stuff into a easy to digest format, there's an enormous opportunity to start training the younger generation coming through and allowing them to understand what happens when they move a road alignment across? Why does the cost go up so much? What was the impact? Because, my belief is engineers are so smart. If we can give them this information, they'll just start naturally producing better design solutions.
Mm. So your take on it, and this is an interesting one as well. So one of the problems people identify or talk about with AI is they're like, well, what about it's going to stop people being trained and stop people learning because AI will take over. And yet what you're talking about is AI being an enabler for this training. Talk me more through around why you think, why do people have that fear, I suppose, of AI replacing rather than enabling?
Oh, look, I think there's no doubt AI is going to replace a lot of jobs in the workplace. I think people know that. And that hence drives fear through the workplace. But if we flip it on the other hand, and we start looking at if we can leverage AI to reduce our workloads, what does our lives look like then? Do we work less hours? But equally, it opens us up to more creativity. So, and for engineers, I think that's hugely exciting because if an engineer's got more time on their hands, and certainly in linear infrastructure, it means more iterations. They can start thinking more cleverly about their designs. And if we're getting this information, that's going to help feed them to produce better designs. So, I'm really optimistic about the future. I can't see it happening right now where an AI agent can come in and build out a road design or an alignment. Potentially that'll come. Well, it will come at some point, but right now, for the foreseeable future, there's still a huge demand for engineers to push those buttons and to set up these designs and run these 3D design models.
What I find really interesting is how engineering may evolve. I mean, even if you look at tech, like a lot of the time in the tech space, you've got solution architects and then there's developers. And then now those development teams are augmented by AI to help with coding and all of that side of things. So it's interesting for me. What's the landscape of engineering going to look like and the skills required? So I see exactly what you're saying. I think AI will replace roles, but maybe I'm an optimist too. I'm also like, but what's it then going to unlock? Because if we've got more time to work in that creative space that we're not, because the other thing is the brain, right? Like if we're not constantly, the problem is when people work in long hours, their amygdala floods, their brain's in a constant state of reactivity, and we can't activate that prefrontal cortex, so that place where we really want to be coming up and strategizing and looking at different ways. So it's almost like this AI really enables us to use our brains more efficiently too.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, let the AI do its thing. Let it, the data that sits behind these big engineering projects, there is so much data. Like as we're collecting this data on some real projects, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of line of data. Like you don't really be wanting to read through all of that. Like even looking at one weekly bill of quantities for myself, like all our projects we run through Praxis with, my role is the, whatever it is, project manager, design manager, or whatever I do. When our design teams are churning out these drawings, I struggle to review a drawing these days because I want to know, what does it cost? And so for me, I'm looking at the data. But even looking through a whole heap of data gets overwhelming, right? And this is where the AI comes into play. And it's so good at like filtering out a lot of that and giving us what we need. And that's just saved my time as well. So what that allows me to do is take more of that helicopter view, think about the project. Are we doing it the right way? Where can we improve? What's the strategic play that we can do? And when you start applying that to major construction projects, and you've got a design team, you've got a construction team, there's so many opportunities for us to sit back, and if we can free up time, I know we're going to produce better engineering designs and we're going to produce better solutions on site because we're going to have more time to understand risk, reduce risk on project, which a lot of it boils down to.
How have you overcome, because, I have been talking to a lot of people building consultancies, and I think people underestimate how challenging it is around it's not as easy as it looks in terms of building relationships, overcoming objections, and all of that side of things. What surprised you and challenged you, I suppose, about building businesses?
Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, building business, we all read about businesses and the big valuation, and someone's just sold their business and everyone thinks, oh, I want to start my own business. And it all seems very easy. And then you actually start it and it's no way is it easy. It is a difficult thing to do. You've got to be good at rejection. You've got to be good at people not replying to your emails. It is really, really hard. You think you've got a great network and everyone's going to support you, and then you go out on your own, you're like, shit, where is everyone? So you got to be resilient. You've got to be strong. And I'm not going to lie, it is tough. You've really got to accept that. But equally, it's hugely rewarding. It only takes one phone call. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to close my business, wrap it up, and then you get one phone call, one project, and it's back on. It's like we're off again. And so, and there's nothing better than delivering a project and delivering it really well and having that control over it. So the upside to running businesses and building businesses is huge, but you do need to balance that out with the downsides. What I would probably add as well, I built Praxis solo. I think having a founder or a partner is a really good idea. With Carbon Trace, that's my residential housing platform, which measures embodied carbon. I've got a co-founder on that one, and it's great. We talk every morning on the phone, quick phone call. He's a resi builder down in Melbourne. I'm in Sydney, and it's just great to be able to bounce ideas off, because building business on your own is very lonely, and you're very solo, and you're on your own a lot. So that's another really hard part about it.
Yeah, 100%. And there's no one to bounce those ideas off, right? Like, you're constantly having to have a go. And do you know what else? I wonder did you find it so a lot of people talk about it's almost a humbling experience when there's no brand, no big brand or corporation to hide behind. All of a sudden, when it's your business, it's built on your idea, your belief, your value, your ethics, your integrity, all of those things. And so I don't know, did you feel more vulnerable, or did anything shift for you around your ego and the way that you thought of yourself? Or was it just for you? You'd been through this journey through hospital, and tell me about that.
No. I think for people that know me, I don't have an ego. I like to try and I'm just a normal person, and you got to remember, I built my first business before my accident, and this is the backstory. I actually worked closely on a big project with John Holland, met a great guy in there, Ian Bryant. He was a fantastic mentor, and I actually signed in 2011. That was the reason I went on my surfing trip. I actually signed a contract as a one-person band, a contract with John Hollands back in the day to set up a subby agreement. As my name back then was BJC Engineering, which was not the greatest, but so like it.
Hey, you're talking to
I set that up.
Right and go. My mind. Carry on.
I set that up back then. So like, I think I'm not sure where I was going, but like I think it's about just. I think building a business, it's about being you and just being honest and open, and you can only do your best. And so it sort of started that back then, had the accident, and then come back and had another crack. So
you'd already so that's interesting. So you'd already started the own business thing. Well, then that's even harder. You're recovering, because then of course having the accident then would have affected I'm assuming your income and things like that, because you haven't got an employer helping you financially during that.
No, that's right. I was out on my own. I had the agreement with Hollands, and then they said we got a big project starting in 3 weeks. I went on this surf trip, place I'd always wanted to surf, one of the best waves in the world. And obviously I didn't go so well, and I woke up a few months later in hospital in Brisbane. But It was a really interesting thing from going through what I went through in hospital and, huge number of operations. I lost a lot of my rhythmic, that engineers are a very rhythmic person. They're very quick, very sharp with their numbers. That was one of the hardest things I found coming back after the stroke, one of the strokes. It was like getting back into an engineering team where people are bouncing numbers around left, right, and centre. I was struggling to keep up. But I remember the transition back, and when I woke up, I really wanted to start working again. I have to shout out WSP in Melbourne. They got me back in there really early, actually, like probably way too early. I was still on dialysis at the time. Like my kidney still wasn't working. So I was going in, I was helping them on some projects, and it was really about trying to get me back into the workplace. I don't think I was doing much. And then I was going to my dialysis and what have you. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm good enough now. And Hollands had been amazing to me. Ian Bryant used to come and visit me in hospital. He was an incredible guy. He's always said the door's still open for you at Hollands. And, that was an incredible thing for me. And so I did go back there. I got in their bulk earthworks team and I started working and running out, old school MX designs. And I was working for them for a few weeks, probably a few months. And the stress that it was putting me under and trying to keep up with these uber smart guys. And I was recovering from some pretty serious stuff, and I got to a point where I just had to admit, and I don't like saying this, but I just had to admit I wasn't up to it. And I had to have that hard conversation with the guys at Hollands. And I said to them, guys, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna let you down. And that's when I realized, and as a person that doesn't normally like not winning, it was a hard thing to admit defeat. But that also then opened the door. I sort of took a step back and it opened the door to think about it. And another opportunity came up back with Arup, with my old crew at Arup, who got me onto a project, East West, I think it was East West tender in Melbourne back in the day, the big tunnel. And I got in there as a designer again, and I just started to a bit slower this time. And I had that security net of a big firm around me, which was great, because I think that was the other thing with the business. Like you said, you're exposed. You are taking the heat from everywhere. So I went back in there and then worked for on that tender with Arup, and things started to improve. And then I got I got a job up in Sydney, which got me back to Sydney. I had to restart my life. At that point, I'd been living with mum and dad for quite a while. They flew down to Melbourne to look after me, and I really needed to restart my life. And that was the point I moved back to Sydney, and that's when I started Praxis and went from there. So,
gosh, what a powerful moment to be able to, and I think it's something people can learn from and listen to, is that you were able to identify, this is too much for me right now. Like I'm not going to be able to do it. And you know what? There are so many people I talk to that might be going through a difficult time, divorce, life challenges, and they know in their heart of hearts that it's just too much, but they're scared to acknowledge that. And I think there's such it's such a good thing to be able to do for yourself and for the company to be able to go, this isn't right. There's somewhere else that is right. This isn't right now. It's not a failure. It's not. It's just a redirecting me that this is just something that's not in my wheelhouse right now.
100%. I mean, nothing in life's a failure. I mean, I always got brought up with my dad, and it was always like we were always open and honest about things. And I think that's one of, it's certainly a big value for us at Praxis and all the companies, openness and honesty. You've got to be honest and you've got to be open, because, if you've got a problem, if you can speak up, and I do a lot of work in mental health now as well since the accident. If we can speak up about how we're feeling, once we put a problem out into the world, we can actually solve it. And as engineers, we're great at solving problems, yeah. But when the problem's in our head and we're not sharing that, it just runs around in your head and it creates bigger problems and bigger problems. So, it takes courage. It's not easy to do. But anyone listening, I think anything in any aspect of your life, whether it's work or pleasure, having the ability to speak up, get it out there, whether it's to a friend, to anyone, a therapist, whoever you want to speak to. Once you can actually visualize or get those words out there, you can actually start dealing with it and go into your problem solving mode and then starting to work out what good looks like.
Do you think as well, I'm interested to see if, sometimes people find it hard to rely on others, but having a significant accident like that, you're forced into it, right? You have to rely on other people to support you. And your mum giving you a kidney. Like I as a mother, that got me so emotional. Tell me about that part of it. Like you went from having, like you would have had to rely on everyone, and then and you're just forced into that sort of situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about humbling, like you kind of, you have to, you kind of like, there's times in your life when you really need to rely on others. You can control a lot of things yourself, but I think generally, trusting others is a great belief as well. There's a lot of great people out there, and I put a lot of faith and trust in the doctors and the medical system that we've got in Australia. I mean, the more I get into it, I'm a nerdy engineer, all they're doing is running the numbers, and they're looking at the data that sits behind it, which is the same that we're doing in engineering now. It's the parallel is extraordinary, but like, they are the experts in that field. If we can trust them and let them do their job well, and rely on them, that was certainly a mindset that I took. And like I said to you earlier, what's things that we can control? And that was, I can be polite to the nurses that are looking after me. I can be thankful for the doctors. I can be thankful for my mum. My mum giving me the kidney was one of the best days of my life. It was incredible. It was, the start of a new life. And my family's been through a lot, and we still do, everyone thinks it's over now for me. And, that's why I probably keep it a bit under wraps, because, it's still hard. I was having coffee with this mate this morning, telling him how hard things have been recently. And that coffee helped me a lot. Just a few things, getting it out there and asking for help, relying on others. I think it's hugely valuable in anything that we do. And I'm super passionate about mental health and speaking up and, being an open book and trying to help others where I can.
And people can't be there for you. Like what I think people underestimate is people actually genuinely want to help. When you find those people that care about you, they can't help you if you don't tell them. It's such a simple thing, but they can't help what you spoke about it before. If you don't verbalize it, if you don't open up and say, I'm really struggling, they can't help you, and they want to.
100%. There's so much help around. I think the problem is when people are really struggling, it's hard to see that, and having the ability to open up and ask for help, it's really difficult to do. And I even see it now, like one of my junior engineers, it's one of the things I try and train her on. It's like, ask for help. Like, I've made a career in engineer. I've made a career out of asking for help, in engineering. That's how I've learned everything I've done in business or engineering or whatever. And I feel like that's something that's missing now in with the shift with COVID and remote working, is the ability for younger people to learn and to grow as engineers, but just keep asking for help. And someone said to me once as well, don't ask for help if you don't already have a solution. Like that, I hate when people come and ask to help them with a problem, but they haven't actually thought about it prior. So, doing that bit of work on yourself, taking some responsibility, thinking about it, but putting your hand up, like delivering an engineering project or running a business, there is nothing worse than continually running into a dead end or going down that rabbit hole, because, and it's kind of, as I think about it, it's why we built Axesse. Like, why wait until 70% of the design's been done before you get a massive cost shock because the cost is blown out? Like, let's get that in early. Let's understand the problem early so we can continually iterate and work on it. Like, there's so many parallels between real life and the working environment. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff leads back to data. Verbalizing your problems is still just data, right? It's just words coming out instead of numbers. So, yeah. Getting a bit wacky there for you, but hope that.
Hey, I'm all for it. You should hear some of the conversations I have. It's fine. It's fine. I'm right with you, Ben.
Yeah, cool.
So one of the things I always ask this question, and I generally don't prepare people for it, but you might have heard it in other episodes. But it's a really important one for me to ask because it gives me an insight into what you're trying to build. With everything you've been through and the work that you're doing in your businesses, if you look at your life, what's the legacy you hope to leave in your life for the work that you're doing at the moment or do overall?
Oh, well, there's probably two legacies. I mean, I love drawing on my accident in hospital as inspiration for others. I know that's helped a lot of people through tough times. And I know, I did a lot of motivational speaking, going around presenting to corporates, and I know there's the ability there that help people with adversity and change. And I mean, never in our lives has there been more change happening right now. So, yeah, I'd say that. The other thing about legacy is I really truly believe there is enormous opportunity to change the construction industry and how we deliver better projects. I think understanding cost risk, using a structured data approach, I've always believed if we could save 5% on the cost of a project, on a publicly funded project, what could that 5% of extra money do? Could we be building more hospitals, schools, open spaces? Like, I would love to see the way that we leverage technology to really help shape a pretty fragmented, broken, old school construction industry, and really deliver better projects going forward with more control and more certainty.
And what also I find so interesting about both things you're passionate about is that the byproduct of improving it by 5% will also then improve mental health outcomes for a lot of people in construction too, who are dealing with the long hours, the stress, the pressure that you talked about that you experienced after your accident going into a workplace. So there's so many parallels. That's what I found so fascinating about your journey is like it's all kind of come together for you almost full circle. And I really, I'm really excited about what you're building.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think you started on the topic at the start, like change is hard, and the industry is going through huge change right now, but, it's about embracing it and it's about never giving up. And the parallel to my hospital stay is uncanny, like it was hard to change. Like I've got disabilities that I live with now. A lot of people don't know I've only got half my eyesight. I've lost a lot of my hearing. Like I'm still running, engineering projects and that, but like change is hard. We just got to deal with it. And never giving up is so powerful. And if you can put those two things in the back of your mind and work with those on a day-to-day basis, like I think it's going to help you and it's going to help a lot of people and teams deliver better projects.
I think it's great. I think it's very inspiring as well. And I hope some people that are, listening, that sometimes it only takes one or two people to get something out of it and your time's worthwhile, right? Like somebody could be listening right now that's struggling and going, okay, I just got to keep going. I'm just got to keep finding a pathway forward.
100%. I mean, it's like, I think I said in one thing, it's like one foot in front of the other. Like I had to learn to walk again. They told me I'd potentially never walk again. And so I remember getting out of my bed for the first time and it was so hard to do, but like the thought of never giving up, and even now, like I've been pretty sick the last 6 months with a few different health issues, which I'm on top of, but I lost 10 kilos. I'm back to the gym now, relearning it all again, like walking again, like not walking, but getting fit again. And it's like, it takes time, things don't change overnight, and our industry is not going to change overnight. AI is not going to change us overnight. Like I think everybody thinks it is, but I think it's going to draw out a bit longer than we think to really fundamentally change, certain construction industry. There's little things we can be doing right now, like emails and what have you, and reviewing contracts. But the big stuff, the big ticket stuff, it's going to take time. But embrace change. Change can be great. Get on it. Don't be afraid of it. Like lean into it. That's probably my only advice with anyone that's a bit standoffish with the whole AI and the technology side of it, and potentially a lot of engineers would be, but just lean into it. Like, you never know what you're going to learn. And I always say you're better off knowing a bit more than the person next to you, because it's going to help you. It's going to help you down the line. So, embrace the change.
I love that. It's a great ethos. And I always have the rocket round as well. And I kind of mixed it up because I got bored with asking the same questions. So that's really much. So I kind of make it up on the spot. But if you had any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, good question. Any superpower? Oh, I don't know. I'd love to be able to help more people. No. Is that a superpower? Being able to help
I think
people?
so. Yeah, there's no rules.
Yeah.
There's no rules then. So if having a superpower to help more people is it, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And cats or dogs?
I'll go dogs.
Yeah, coffee or wine?
100%. Good, strong, flat white in the mornings is the way to go, but I don't mind a wine at night time.
And favourite holiday destination?
Let's go Bali.
And what makes you feel like you're home?
Home as in Australia, or like home as in home? Like
home as in home. What feels like home to you?
Just where you can relax, where you can be, just kick back and relax, and enjoy that warmth of being home.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on as a guest. That was a really fun episode. And I want to learn how, I guess, people can support your business, learn more about your business. Tell us more about the best way to make contact with you if someone's, if it's triggered something from someone listening to the episode.
Oh, look, I'm easily contactable through, the websites. There's contact details there. I'm more than happy for emails or phone calls or whatever. I love presenting to teams, and if there's a way we can help anyone else out, like, I'd love to hear from anyone. Yeah, it's Praxis Engineering, or they're all a mouthful, but like there's Praxis, there's Axesse, and there's Carbon Trace. So, yeah. Thank you so much for having me on, Lauren. It's been great to chat and share my story with you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on as a guest. It was really good, Ben. Really enjoyed it.
If this episode gave you new insights, don't let them go to waste. Take action, apply them. And if you want more insider strategies from the best in construction and infrastructure, make sure to subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the leaders who open the most doors aren't waiting for opportunities, they're building them.